Childhood beneath the Boston rooftops. Sarah's earliest memories were bathed in the golden afternoon light that filtered through the old windows of their weathered duplex on the outskirts of Boston. The house wasn't anything grand, just crooked wooden floors that creaked with every step, faded wallpaper patterned with cherry blossoms, and a kitchen that seemed to hold the scent of apple pie all year round. But
You
for
want a
Sarah
little more?
and her older sister Emily,
Just a tiny
it was a
bit.
world unto itself. Emily had an energy that filled every corner of the home. She was the kind of big sister who showed Sarah how to ride a bike along the cracked sidewalks, and who'd tape encouraging notes inside her lunchbox on days
You're doing so
she
good.
had
Keep
spelling
those feet
quizzes.
pedaling.
After their parents passed away in a sudden car accident
okay.
when
Just a
Sarah
little
was
scratch.
just 8, Emily, only 16 herself, became both
It was
anchor
right there.
and compass.
I think I
She
saw
woke
it
up
too.
early to make oatmeal, helped with math homework,
I think I saw
and
it too.
tucked Sarah in at night, promising that nothing could ever truly separate them. Sarah admired Emily fiercely. Where she was shy and quiet, her sister sparkled, making friends effortlessly at school, admired by teachers, always aiming higher and farther. Their evenings were often spent sprawled on the living room rug, flipping through college brochures, talking into the night about a future beyond Boston. Somewhere in New York, maybe, or even Harvard, if they dared to dream. Despite the sadness that lingered, their laughter still echoed off the kitchen cabinets. On weekends, Emily would take her on walks to the old library downtown or read aloud from thick, battered books until Sarah fell asleep. Through every hardship, Sarah felt safe so long as she had Emily by her side. Their tiny house may have leaned with every New England storm, but within its walls, love and promise remained unshakable. At least, that was how it felt back then. The promise.
No!
Under the winter night lights, Boston winters have a way of wrapping the world in silence, and that night was no different. Snow had fallen steadily through the afternoon, draping the streets and houses in a sparkling ivory blanket. It muffled the city's sounds, so that even the distant traffic was nothing more than a memory. Inside their old duplex, the heater rattled and icicles fringed the porch, but Sarah and Emily huddled in their shared bedroom under a mountain of patchwork quilts, hearts beating quietly in the dark. It was the eve of Emily's 18th birthday, but no celebration sparkled downstairs, just the soft glow of a single bedside lamp casting golden halos on the wallpaper. Emily reached out, her hand finding Sarah's, their palms cold but clinging tightly. Sarah could feel Emily's pulse, quick and determined, like a promise in itself. "Hey, don't fall asleep yet," Emily whispered, her breath a wisp in the cold air. Sarah turned, searching her sister's face
We could
for
draw
certainty.
something beautiful with
Years
these.
of shared history. They had weathered grief together, had grown up too fast. Facing her now, Sarah saw not just her sister, but her only family, the person she counted on most in the world. Emily squeezed her hand, her eyes shining with something fierce and protective. "I know things are hard. I know it feels like everyone expects us to just keep moving. But I promise you, Sar, whatever happens, it's you and me. We'll get out of here together someday. We'll make it to New York,
I can't believe
maybe
this.
Columbia, maybe beyond.
I can't believe this.
You'll see. I'll never leave you behind." Sarah felt time slow around them. The world outside had shrunk to their tiny bedroom, the creak of floorboards, the hum of the radiator. She memorized the moment, the cadence of Emily's voice, the conviction there. For an instant, hope bloomed in Sarah's chest, as if she could already see the city lights reflected in her sister's eyes. They whispered dreams back and forth for hours, of degrees and scholarships, of bustling libraries and city skyline. Sarah promised she would study hard, and Emily promised she'd lead the way. As sleep tugged at her, Sarah believed every
Still
word
nothing.
her sister said. The snow kept falling, soft and endless, as if to seal their pact beneath its hush. Years later, Sarah would think back to that promise, wondering when the warmth of it had faded, whether it had ever been real. But on that winter night, beneath the Boston rooftop and the weight of their shared grief, the promise glowed brighter than any star. Behind the Spotlight High School was a strange world, one that both sisters found themselves alone in after the loss of their parents. It was a place where nothing lasted long. Friends, grades, promises, and the future felt as fragile as the frost on the Boston sidewalks. Yet, from the outside, everyone admired Emily Dalton. Brilliant, hardworking, leader of the debate team, president of the student council, and expected valedictorian. She wore her heartbreak behind perfect scores and a dazzling smile. Sarah saw the cracks first. Emily would pace the kitchen late into the night, mumbling through scholarship essays, hands trembling as she filled out the endless applications. Sometimes, Sarah would stand silently in the hallway, peeking around the chipped doorframe, watching her sister fight panic with stubborn determination. Other nights, Emily snapped at her for the smallest things: a misplaced sock, a half-finished assignment, her patience vanishing under the weight of their responsibilities. But Sarah always forgave her. She told herself that was what sisters did, especially when their world had shrunk down to just two. "What if I blew the SATs?" Emily asked one night, voice tight as a violin string. "You won't," Sarah answered automatically. But Emily never seemed convinced. The perfect transcript, the glowing recommendations, the coveted Polanski International Scholarship, all of it depended on being flawless. Sarah had her own dreams. She loved history, secretly doodled scenes of city skylines in her notebooks, imagined libraries filled with sunlight and possibility. But Emily's ambitions became hers by default. Their hopes fused together like two mirrors, reflecting the same wish. The plan unfolds. By senior year, pressure radiated through every corner of their home. Bills came in thick envelopes, past due notices stacked neatly under Emily's textbooks.
We have to find out what happened.
Another perfect grade on her American government test, a grade that made the guidance counselor finally mention the Columbia Prep
Get out of
Scholarship.
here!
Emily hugged her, tighter than usual, eyes shining with pride. Or was it something else? In retrospect, Sarah would wonder if she had missed the unease in her sister's arms, or simply wished away the awkward questions. Time began slipping. Sarah juggled club meetings and late shifts at the corner store, while Emily's achievements received applause at every school assembly. Still, nothing seemed enough. Even as Emily's application letters piled up, so did her sleepless nights. The pivotal week began without warning. Sarah came home to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over the laptop they shared. The next morning, news ricocheted down the school halls. An anonymous tip accusing a student, Sarah, of cheating on her entrance essays. "I would never," Sarah pleaded with the principal, her voice cracking with fear. She protested her innocence, but the evidence was damning. A suspicious essay file, matching words from a website. The school launched an inquiry, and the guidance counselor, always so warm, now avoided her eyes. Emily, at first, stood by her side, hand in hand, but something in her gaze was distant, detached. At night, when Sarah wept quietly in the lower bunk, Emily lay still, her back flat against the mattress, breathing purposefully, never making a sound. The fallout, the Polanski International Scholarship, Sarah's chance at Columbia, disappeared in a blur of official letters
This
and polite
confirms it.
apologies. Emily, meanwhile, was named the alternate recipient. She cried when she opened the acceptance envelope, her tears wetting the page, whispering how proud Mom and Dad would have been. Sarah could not pretend to understand. Bitter words sat unspoken between them. Every shared glance hurt. The duplex felt suddenly claustrophobic, the kitchen's homey scent replaced by silence and suspicion. At graduation, Emily took the stage to deliver her speech as valedictorian, her voice ringing out about determination, resilience, and family. The audience cheered, oblivious to the rift that had yawned open between her and Sarah. Sarah watched from the back, applause rattling in her chest. Her own diploma felt like an afterthought.
So
Older
excited to
relatives
start
sent
fresh here.
cards. You must be so proud of
love
your
our new
big
house.
sister. Never knowing the truth behind the headlines and scholarship lists. Alone, starting over. The summer after graduation was a study in avoidance. Emily packed for her honors program in New York. Sarah worked long hours at the diner, rarely home except to sleep. When it came time for goodbye, the farewell was stiff. A hug that meant nothing, a careful avoidance of eye contact. Sarah left Boston for California with nothing but a suitcase, her wounds fresh and unspoken. She enrolled in a state university, supported herself with legal internships, and a fierce, grinding determination. For years, she refused to talk about Emily or Boston. The past locked away, the pain transforming slowly into ambition. She
evidence
became
is
known
here.
as the
I have
student
it all.
who never gave up, who put herself through law school, whose empathy for the underdog sometimes bordered on obsession. Alone in her Los Angeles apartment, she replayed the last moments with Emily in her mind. Had she missed a clue? Was there a moment when her sister's embrace had changed from comforting to calculating? Sometimes she raged at Emily. Sometimes she craved the warmth she remembered from childhood. But as law school ground on, Sarah slowly learned to stand on her own. Lingering shadows. Still, the betrayal clung to her in unexpected ways. She was meticulous to a fault, checking every fact twice, terrified of even the appearance of dishonesty. She shied away from office friendships, trusting no one fully. At night, the soft echo of Emily's promise, "We'll make it together, I'll never leave you behind," would surface unbidden, only to be swallowed by the memory of that cold, silent, final summer. Sarah chased justice in the courtroom, unable to chase away the sense that something was still unfinished, that the past, no matter how long ago it had been buried, was not truly past. In some distant part of herself, she still wanted answers. Most of all, she wanted to know if Emily had ever regretted what she had done, or if the truth, whatever it was, would ever see daylight. And so, beneath the weight of unasked questions and severed bonds,
That's a good one.
Sarah built a new life from the rubble of the old. The scars beneath the surface shaped her, made her who she was, vigilant and unyielding. And though she could not yet forgive,
Good morning, everyone.
she carried on, waiting for a
I want to
day
share my
when the
story
truth
with you today.
might finally set them both free. Growing up in pain and determination, California was nothing like Boston. The air was dry and smelled faintly of eucalyptus. When Sarah first stepped off the Greyhound, backpack slung over one shoulder and a battered blue suitcase rolling behind her, she felt the sharp ache that comes from being untethered, adrift in a world far removed from snowbound streets and cramped New England kitchens. She was just 18, and already the comfort of roots had become little more than a memory. At first, every waking moment was survival. She rented a shoebox apartment near the university's sprawling campus, cramped, sun-bleached, with linoleum floors, that peeled at the corners, and walls thin enough to hear her neighbors' late-night arguments halfway down the hall. Sleep came in uncertain doses, broken by the wail of sirens and the persistent worry of whether her next paycheck would be enough for groceries and rent. Sarah balanced 3 jobs that first year. As a server in a donut shop at dawn, a library assistant in the afternoons, and on weekends, she filed paperwork in the back office of a ramshackle law firm run by an aging defense attorney named Mr. Goldstein. His world was cluttered with yellowed files and coffee-stained court transcripts. But when everyone else dismissed Sarah as a scholarship recipient from out of state, Mr. Goldstein noticed her diligence. He saw how she lingered over legal memos, always reading twice, asking thoughtful questions about statutes and precedent. "Not everyone's got the stomach for this kind of work," he told her one Thursday evening, after they'd spent hours poring over eviction notices and restraining orders. "But you don't blink." He said it as a compliment, but Sarah wondered sometimes if it meant she had already become too hard. School was a different battlefield.
It's a beautiful view.
She earned a partial scholarship, but still scraped for tuition, choosing secondhand textbooks, chasing study groups, and competing with classmates who had never had to skip meals or share bedrooms. Her professors found her intense, almost stubbornly focused. One, a constitutional law lecturer with a penchant for Socratic questioning, commented, "You never let a detail slip by, Miss Dalton." Sarah did not explain that it wasn't simply ambition driving her. It was the desperate need to never be doubted, to never again have anyone question her integrity. In the quiet of her apartment, Sarah relived fragments of the past, memories of her parents' laughter, late-night confessions with Emily under patchwork quilts, the hollow echo of betrayal in the kitchen as everything unraveled. Sometimes she sat cross-legged on the floor, sifting through old letters and college brochures she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Her heart ached with the loss, with the sense that she'd left a piece of herself behind in every city she'd called home. Other
Protected
nights,
by neighborhood
she
watch.
locked herself in the campus library, working until they turned off the lights. She remembered what Emily used to tell her. "We'll make it to New York, Sar, maybe even beyond." Now, she chased not just dreams, but the promise of proving herself. If not to Emily, then to the world. Law school admissions were competitive. Sarah's grades were flawless, but every application question about character or adversity overcome dredged up the old wounds. She wrote in her personal statement about resilience, compassion, and justice. She did not mention her sister, nor the scholarship stolen in a web of lies. That grief, that anger, was hers alone to bear. By her second year at West State Law, Sarah earned a coveted spot on the law review. She interned with a legal aid clinic, representing low-income tenants and immigrants in landlord disputes. The work was endless: court forms, witness statements, hostilities from landlords who thought she was just a girl playing lawyer. Yet she persevered, fueling her arguments with the same grit that had gotten her this far. Her
Case
clients,
closed.
many of whom had lost just as much as Sarah, reminded her that justice was never an abstract principle. It was a fight, messy and imperfect, that required someone to care enough not to give up. Sarah found purpose in preparation. She was methodical. Post-it notes fanned over her casebooks, color-coded outlines, lists and sublists in neat handwriting. She double-checked every fact, rehearsed every cross-examination in the mirror, her voice sharpening with each attempt. Her colleagues admired her drive, but sometimes kept a wary distance. Sarah was guarded, unwilling to trust easily.
5.3 meters.
She'd learned, painfully, What could happen when trust was misplaced? Even in her triumphs, loneliness lingered. She avoided student mixers, shied away from invitations to bar crawls or game nights. When other law students spoke easily about parents paying their rent or helping with car trouble, Sarah nodded politely, but offered little of herself. Her walls were high, but not impenetrable. Occasionally, a late-night conversation with an intern or a client's child smile would offer brief, bittersweet connection.
It was
Still,
never your fault.
echoes of her old home in Boston haunted her. On rare nights, when the haze of exhaustion lifted and she found a moment alone with her tea and textbooks, her thoughts drifted to Emily. She replayed the night of the promise in the snow, the way her sister's voice shook, the warmth of their clasped hands. What had become of Emily beneath all that ambition and pressure? Did she ever second-guess what she'd done? Or did she tuck away the guilt the way Sarah had learned to tuck away the pain?
We have many
When the letters
volunteers
came,
who help with our cause.
an occasional holiday card
Yes,
from
it
an
truly
aunt on
makes
the
a
East
difference.
Coast, or a form reminder about high school reunions, Sarah let them accumulate in a drawer, unopened. She told herself
My
the past was
dearest daughters,
past, but the
I know
wound
I've hurt you
never fully
deeply,
closed.
and for
Sarah
that,
ultimately
I am
graduated
truly
near the top
sorry.
of her class, her reputation as a young, relentless advocate growing. She passed the California bar on her first attempt,
It's a nice
her
day out.
hands
It
trembling
is.
with hope and fear as she opened the official email alone in her apartment. There was no celebration. Instead, she sat quietly at her kitchen table, tracing the scars on her heart and promising herself, not for the first time, that she would never betray those who depended on her, that she would rewrite her family story in a courtroom instead of a kitchen. Her first cases as a practicing attorney were small.
My
Wage
investigation
theft,
confirms the
wrongful
defendant was
eviction,
at the scene
pro
and
bono
directly
work
involved.
for battered women. Each case was a new chance to fight for someone who deserved better, a new chance to prove, to herself most of all, that no one else would pay for the pain she'd carried since that long,
You are
brittle
not alone.
Boston winter. And as she strode into courtrooms, clutching files prepared with meticulous care, Sarah carried the past with her, not as a burden, but as a shield and a source of strength. Every victory belonged in part to the girl she'd been, huddled beneath quilts in the dark, and the hardened woman she'd become, relentless and resolute in her pursuit of justice. Fateful encounter at the Manhattan courthouse. It started as just another Monday. Sarah Dalton, now 5 years a practicing attorney, had spent her morning commuting through the dense Manhattan fog, shoulders squared and briefcase in hand. She'd grown into her role, a sharp legal defender known for dogged preparation and unflinching cross-examinations. On this October morning, she wore her armor of navy suit and careful detachment, ready for the day's docket in Superior Court. The courthouse was always busy, footsteps echoing in marble corridors, the hum of security scanners, and the faint waft of burnt coffee from the break room on the second floor. Sarah checked the docket at the information desk, her finger trailing down the list of cases until it froze on a name, defendant, Emily Dalton. For a moment, her breath caught, disbelief thickening in her chest. Emily? Her sister's name was here, in black and white, under fraud, breach of contract, corporate. The name shook loose, years of memories, shared childhood secrets, winter promises, pain, and the silence she'd cultivated since their last goodbye. She blinked hard, but the name remained. The desk clerk glanced up, impatient. Sarah managed a tight nod, clutching the file to her chest as she walked deeper into the courthouse, a tangle of emotion rising in her throat. The case. Sarah didn't ask for the case. It landed on her desk as a random assignment at the firm. Her supervisor,
what was
Miss
that?
Burton, handed her the thick file with a brisk, "Big defendant. Some press likely. Get the intake meeting done by Friday." She had no idea. Nobody in New York associated Dalton with Sarah's private history. The file's front page stared up at her that afternoon.
I need to find it before they do.
Echoing what she'd glimpsed that morning. Sarah stared at the glossy photo attached. Emily had changed. Sleeker, confident, wearing the effortless smile that used to charm teachers and neighbors. But Sarah saw something else. A thinning around the eyes, a tension in her jaw, the shadow of old brittleness. The file grew heavier with every page. Numbers, statements, contracts. Allegations painted Emily as both a visionary leader and a reckless risk-taker. One note, scrawled by her predecessor, read simply,
"So you saw nothing at all
Dalton
that night,
will
right?"
fight.
I already told you,
She
no.
never folds. For Sarah, it dredged up memories of kitchen table battles over homework. The way Emily always found another way out, another twist to any story. Sarah closed the file. Her pulse seemed too loud. Her pen hovered over the email draft to Ms. Burton, ready to recuse herself, but she didn't send it. Instead, she arranged
so
the
tired
initial
of
client
this.
Then
meeting,
just leave.
telling herself the reunion. The Dalton and Associates conference room faced the bustle of Broadway, sunlight slicing dust through the glass. Sarah arrived 15 minutes early, trying hard to soothe the tremor in her hands. When the door finally swung open, it was Emily, older but unmistakable.
I need
She
help.
paused
Something
in
is
the
happening.
threshold, the confident corporate mask slipping just a fraction as her gaze locked with Sarah's. For an instant, neither spoke. Years stretched between them. Boston, betrayal, the wordless fracture of family. Then, Emily's armor reassembled and she stepped forward, hand extended in practiced greeting. Her tone clipped and even. "Counselor Dalton, are you representing me, or is this a mistake?" Sarah's lips parted, the words slow and careful. "I'm assigned to your case. If you'd prefer, we can request another attorney, but..." Emily cut her off, dropping into the chair opposite. "You, after all these years, I guess fate isn't done with us yet." She chuckled, but the sound was hollow, brittle. They were two professionals, but the ghosts in that room pressed in tight. Sarah clicked her pen, face unreadable. "Let's keep this about the facts, Emily." The meeting was tense. Emily recited details with cool precision, avoiding anything personal. A far cry from the warmth and chaos of their childhood. She described her company's vision, denied all wrongdoing, and insisted that rivals had fabricated the charges. But when Sarah pressed about transactions, her lawyer's curiosity piqued by a discrepancy, Emily's mask cracked for a heartbeat. Her gaze darted away, and her fingers, adorned with a thin wedding band, fidgeted with a pen. It was a gesture Sarah recognized. The old Emily, cornered in trying not to show fear. Old wounds, new roles. That night, back in her apartment, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, replaying every second. She told herself it was just another case, but her heart thudded with the knowledge that it was anything but. Fragments from the past surfaced. Snowy Boston streets.
Hello, can you hear
whispered
me?
promises. The darkness in Emily's eyes after it all fell apart. She remembered being the outcast, fingers trembling on a coffee-stained acceptance letter to Cal State, while Emily took the bows and the scholarships.
Please help me!
What had Emily done with all her ambition? Did she ever think about the lines she'd crossed? Sarah pulled out her old journals, pages inked with pain and blame. Reading them now, part of her felt childish. Another part still ached with that old, raw wound. Professionally, Sarah poured herself into prep. She sifted through emails, contracts, and deposition reports, looking for the truth. Each inconsistency brought an echo of her sister's voice, persuasive, desperate, proud. As she built Emily's defense, she began to see both familiar and foreign patterns. Her sister hadn't lost her knack for half-truths, for spinning stories, for refusing to lose. Preparation and doubt. Working late in the Manhattan office, Sarah alternated between frustration and fierce determination. If Emily was innocent, she owed her sister the best defense she could build. If not, Sarah wasn't sure what she would do. Betrayal upon betrayal lurked at the edge of every discovery. She struggled to balance justice and vengeance. Every meeting was a test. Emily's lawyerly posture against Sarah's restraint, jabs that sounded professional but carried the weight of childhood. There were glimpses of sorrow, too. Moments when Emily, tired, would catch Sarah's eye and look for the sister she'd once sworn to never leave behind. Once, after a tense session, Emily lingered while the others filed out. She almost whispered, "Why did you take this case?" But she hardened, crossing her arms. Sarah thought about answering, about breaking the wall, but professionalism won. They parted wordlessly. The stage is set. The trial neared. Reporters began to circle, sniffing for scandal in the pretty CEO with a sterling record and a family defender at her side. Sarah's firm braced for pressure. Opposing counsel sensed drama and pressed hard in depositions. The story would play out under the harsh lights of Manhattan. A courtroom drama built not just on business, but on family, betrayal, and secrets buried beneath years of ambition. Sarah, alone in her office on the eve of trial, stared at her reflection in the window.
Please pick
Saw
up, please.
pain, pride, and something like hope. For the first time since Boston, she wondered if the truth, whatever it might be, could finally set her free. The truth gradually comes to light. The marble echo of the Manhattan courthouse became a world of shadows and whispering doubts as Sarah dove deeper into Emily's legal defense. The trial, with its press-worn and stakes that veered between personal and professional, wasn't just about safeguarding her client, her sister, from a potential ruin. It was about uncovering truths neither of them had dared face for over a decade. The cramped conference room, where Sarah spent her late nights, overflowed with bankers' boxes and Redweld folders, contracts, emails, false ledgers, and handwritten receipts scattered across the oaken table marked the breadcrumbs of Emily's life as a CEO. Sarah's paralegal kept remarking that the case felt unusually tangled. "How did it get so messy?" he asked
I'm doing
one
really
evening,
great.
yawning at midnight. But Sarah only murmured that life, like families, rarely offered clear lines. As she organized evidence for Emily's defense, Sarah was haunted not only by memories, her sister's laugh in a snowstorm or the cold silence of their last Boston summer, but also by inconsistent numbers and a string of missing emails from the defendant's company records. The opposing attorneys circled hungrily, their filings sharp with innuendo, as if daring Sarah to admit she was too close to the case to be objective, uncovering secrets in the silence.
Don't tell anyone.
It was a series of interviews with former Dalton Strategies employees that finally pushed past the surface. At first, it was routine legal work: establish timelines, contradict witness statements, discredit the accusers. But one mid-level accountant brought up an odd detail. Months before the fraud allegations, Emily personally oversaw an internal audit, then inexplicably fired the controller who raised ethical concerns. The controller's reports had vanished. No paper trail. Sarah's legal mind itched. She requested a court order for old backup drives from Dalton Strategies' IT vendor. The delay agonized her, dredging up long-forgotten anxiety.
A freshly dug patch.
While waiting, she pressed Emily. "Do you remember why you let your controller go? Why didn't you archive the audit reports?" But Emily's eyes stayed hooded, her answers technical. There were discrepancies. I trusted the process. Sarah didn't press further, yet. On cross-examination day, one hostile witness inadvertently let slip that the audit reports hadn't disappeared. Copies had been handed to Emily herself for a family review. The phrase made Sarah's blood run cold. She imagined her sister, years ago, clutching two thick files, one about a corporation, one about the essay scandal in Boston, and burying both out of sight. Fragments of the past. Late one night, Sarah stayed at the firm, curtains drawn, rain striking the windows in relentless streaks. The city blurred beneath orange streetlights, so far from the soft snow that muffled Boston winters. She opened her laptop and,
We
for
have
the
breaking
first
news
time
to
in
report
years,
tonight regarding the
searched for her
ongoing
own name
investigation.
alongside scholarship scandal, old message boards, yellowed with age, flashed judgments and rumors, but nothing substantial. Another window she opened, almost in a trance.
Do you have some information for us?
Was a digital
Yes,
archive
I think I do.
of her high school guidance counselor's calendar. She saw an entry for a meeting. Sarah, Emily Dalton, same day the false cheating tip was submitted. Her skin prickled with recognition. Sarah's mind spun with the ache of old wounds. She considered, for the first time, what it meant for Emily to not only fabricate, but also actively protect a painful secret, to hold it so close for so long that it bled into every choice she made as an adult, confrontation and consequence. The new evidence finally arrived. A set of audit files from Dalton Strategies' early
Oh,
days.
for crying out loud.
Rows of spreadsheet entries and signatures, one belonging to the fired controller, another to Emily, initials neat and steady. But at the very bottom, a single unsigned note. Liabilities undisclosed. Option to shield losses from board. Discuss only with ED. The initials alone sank Sarah's heart with fresh dread. Sarah met with Emily that night in the chilly legal office, New York's neon casting their faces in slanted shadow. The
Have a good
conversation
day.
began with a legal update, but it couldn't stay neutral for long. Sarah's voice broke first. There's more to this. You've been hiding again, Em. You did it back then too, didn't you? Covered for yourself, hurt whoever had to get hurt. Even me. Emily's lips quivered. For a moment, her posture shifted. She looked like the tired teenager Sarah remembered, the one who promised, under Boston's glowing street lamps, to never leave her behind. Her voice was barely audible. You don't understand. I was trying to protect everything we had left. After Mom and Dad, if they started asking questions, we would have lost custody, lost the house. You would have gone into foster care, so I did what I had to do. Sarah's anger surged, but it collided with confusion. So you burned me to save us both? Is that really what you tell yourself?
He was wearing
Emily's eyes
a
glistened.
dark hoodie,
I never
and
stopped
he had
being
a
your
scar
sister.
right
But
here
there's always
above
a
his
cost,
left eye.
isn't there? I'm sorry if it was you who had to pay then. Maybe it's my turn now. Shifting ground, over the following days, trial preparations became something other than adversarial. Sarah weighed her obligation as a lawyer against her loyalty as a sister. Could she really crush Emily on the stand for the sake of justice? Was there a truth that balanced the two
It's a
halves
delightful evening,
of a
isn't
broken
it?
family?
Indeed.
As testimony rolled onward, Sarah watched her sister unravel in public. The elegant, capable CEO now looked diminished. Less the villain reported by tabloids, more the human casualty of relentless ambition and ancient choices. The audit findings were introduced, not as a smoking gun, but as a map of flawed decisions. No criminal mastermind, just a woman desperate to survive, justifying each compromise until she could barely see where she'd gone wrong. Letting light in the courts would decide on the company. But that evening, after closing arguments, Sarah stood outside the courthouse, the city pulsing around her. her mind quiet for the first time in years. She understood, finally, that Emily's betrayals had never been clean or simple, and that, buried in the ruins, there was something worth salvaging. She didn't know what the verdict would be, but as she looked up at the cold Manhattan sky, Sarah realized the most elusive truths were rarely absolute. Guilt was tangled with love. Justice walked hand in hand.
Do you recognize
with
this
mercy.
woman checking out these books?
For the first time since
Yes,
that
I do.
Boston night of promises, Sarah considered forgiveness not as surrender, but as an opening for something new. In that moment, as the city lights gleamed on the courthouse steps, the truth, fractured, painful, but undeniable, finally began to surface. Scars revealed the choice of forgiveness. The day the verdict was due, the Manhattan courthouse was ringed with a knot of reporters and a restless autumn wind, dead leaves scraping across the steps where Sarah stood. Years ago, she had imagined any climactic family scene as private.
I just need
Quiet
to figure this
breaches
out.
in kitchens, or
I
fractured
just need to
goodbyes
figure this out.
whispered in bedrooms. But real reckoning, she was learning, sometimes required an audience. There were some truths too old and heavy to stay hidden. Inside, Sarah sat just behind the bar, notes clutched in one hand, as the judge read through the findings. The text of the decision blurred before her. Civil penalties for the corporation, but no criminal conviction.
I didn't
Emily
want
would
anyone
lose
to
her
get
company,
hurt, I swear.
her public standing shredded, but she would not go to prison. The judicial language was dry, but there, beneath the facts and statutes, Sarah heard echoes of every lie with which her family's tapestry had been patched. Emily sat beside her counsel across the aisle, spine rigid in her suit, eyes dark. The verdict was a reprieve, not a victory. The buzz of the gallery grew. Press microphones thrust forward as Emily eked out a perfunctory statement. Remorse, determination to rebuild. There were no questions. The court wasn't interested in sisterly trauma. But Sarah,
I know, right?
for the first time,
It was
was
absolutely
unwilling to let
wild.
the past remain a private ghost. She stood, gathering her breath. "Excuse me," she said, voice trembling but clear. "I'd like to make a brief statement as Ms. Dalton's representative.
Please,
and
just help me.
as her sister." A ripple ran through the room. Sarah's hands shook,
There it is.
but she pressed
Found it.
forward. There are consequences in
Let's
law,
get it open.
and others that take root quietly, over years. My family's story is written in both. I want to say, not just to this court, but to everyone watching, that justice isn't always simple, and scars aren't always visible. That night, the story broke online. Sisters defend, sisters fracture. Headlines shouted. Some articles mocked the spectacle. Others tried to parse nuance that was never theirs to understand. Sarah had exposed what she could not forgive in silence.
Once
The
there was a
scholarship
little
scandal,
moonbeam who
the
loved to
tangled
play
web of
hide
protection
and
and
seek
betrayal,
among the stars.
and the lasting effects of choices made in fear. She wasn't seeking sympathy, just honesty. Surprisingly, the phone didn't ring off the hook with judgment. A few distant relatives texted, regretful, uncertain what to say. A handful of
Yes, I'll be
emails
home for dinner
arrived
around
from
7,
old
just
schoolmates
watering the
and
lawn
legal
now.
colleagues.
Everything
Their
is
words
quiet over here.
tentative,
It's so peaceful.
but mostly
Oh,
kind.
wait a minute.
The world, Sarah realized, expected public people to grow armor over their wounds. But real strength was sometimes just choosing to reveal they existed. For days, Sarah avoided Emily. Their lawyers coordinated technicalities. Personal calls went unanswered. Sarah knew she should have felt relief, even vindication. Instead, everything ached. Her chest, her jaw from clenching back regret. The old, deep scar at the center of her life, throbbing as if freshly cut. One cold evening, her doorbell chimed. On the other side stood Emily, not the flawless executive or dazzling student council star, but her older sister, hair a mess beneath a knit hat, eyes rimmed red with exhaustion. They stood in awkward silence, the clatter of city
We
traffic
have to get out of here.
echoing up
We will.
from the street outside.
I have a plan.
Finally, Emily spoke. I read the statement. You had a right. She paused, shoulders hunched. Maybe you always did. Sarah shook her head, swallowing an old bitterness that still threatened to surface. That's not what mattered, Em. What mattered was that
Well, I
you
was
never
doing my
told me
rounds,
why
just
until
like
it was
any other
too late.
Tuesday.
A long stillness followed,
And then I saw it.
and Emily let out a shaky exhale. I thought I could carry it for both of us. The guilt, the decisions. I kept telling myself I was saving us, protecting us from losing each other. The house, everything. I convinced myself you'd understand someday. Or maybe you wouldn't have to know at all. Her words, tangled, desperate. But every year, it just got heavier. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, her defenses weakening in the face of her sister's vulnerability. I spent years hating you, or wishing I could. But you were my only family. I missed you, even when I wanted nothing more than to forget you. Emily studied her, pain and weary hope mingling in her gaze. I'm sorry, Sar. I can't change any of it. If you need to hate me, I'll understand. Sarah exhaled, feeling the ache for what it was. A wound, yes, but also a mark of having loved
I was
and
out
survived.
fishing early this
I
morning.
think I'll always carry the scar.
I saw
Em.
something strange
But I
being
don't want
dumped
it
in
to
the
keep
water.
bleeding forever. They stood there, the air thick with memory. Sarah remembered winters in Boston, nights spent promising a better future, sisters clinging tight against the dark. She remembered the betrayals, but also the moments of shelter and laughter, of promises whispered by the faint light under patchwork quilts. I forgave you a long time ago, Sarah said finally, surprised to realize it was true. I just didn't know how to let go. Tears threatened in Emily's eyes, but she blinked them away. Can we try again? Maybe not as what we were, but as who we are now. Sarah nodded, heart hammering in her chest. We have to, because the only thing worse than a scar is letting the wound define us. In the months that followed, Sarah began the slow process of healing. For herself, and tentatively, alongside Emily. Their conversations were awkward at first, full of stops and starts, but gradually became easier. They met for coffee, shared guarded laughter, pieced together the gaps that years and secrets had torn open. Sarah's work changed, too. She took on more pro bono cases, driven by compassion, sharpened by her own experience. She was honest about her past with clients who needed her to understand pain, and she found purpose in helping others face complicated truths. Emily's public life faded, but in the quiet, she rebuilt with humility, taking smaller jobs and volunteering, reaching out to those she'd once convinced herself were beneath her attention. Sometimes they argued, sometimes they cried, but always there was forward motion, a proof that forgiveness wasn't a single act, but a daily, stubborn choice. In public, Sarah no longer shied away from the word family, no longer hid the once shameful parts of her story. She taught herself to speak about scars, not as signs of weakness, but as proof of what could be survived and who could be forgiven. Forgiveness was not forgetting. It was acceptance, a willingness to build something new atop the ruins of what was lost. And as another winter set in, Sarah found herself walking the city streets beneath a sky glazed with cold stars, breathing in the sharp air. The wound, though visible, no longer hurt the same. It would never vanish, but in the sharing, it had ceased to define either of them. In every courtroom, every family argument, every moment of silent reckoning, Sarah now carried not just her ache, but the hard-earned hope that even the most painful scars could, one day, become part of the story you chose. No longer hidden, but held openly, in the service of something stronger than pain.